Okay, notice went out. Check to see if we're actually streaming. Yes, we are streaming. Okay. Okay. Yes, we are streaming. Good. Okay, we'll get started. Let's go back. Okay, and we will chant a little bit. All righty. Let's see. What are we going to chant today? Oh, one of my favorites. Goranga Balite Habe. Goranga Bolite Habib Pulakasharir Hati Hade Bolite Nayane Habibir Goranga Bolite Habib Pulaka Sharir Hati Hade Bolite Nayane Balubedir Arakabe Dajanera Corona Hoibe Samsara Bashana Mora Kapichuchaibe Arakabe Dajanera Corona Hoibe Samsara Bashana Kapichuchaibe Vishaya Shaniya Kabe Shura Bemana Gabriyama Hira Boshri Rindavanava Vishaya Shaniya Kabe Shura Habe Mana Kapeyamani Oh Rindavanapa Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hoibe Akuti Kabeyama Bujabose Yugala Biriti Rupa Raghunatha Pande Hoibe Akuti Kabeyama Bujabose Yugala Biriti Rupa Raghunatha Pade Akumorasha Ratana Kore Sadara Narottamanas Gaurangavali Dehave Mulakasha Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Chanko, Haribo, 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 Jai, Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Paravatacharya, all Suteta Sutashi Shimad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Mara Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Shila Hridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem say Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Sayam Kund Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Maturanam Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vacharani Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dejatarani. Let me read the translation. When will that opportune moment come to me when I shiver upon chanting the name of Lord Gauranga? When will I cry while chanting Hare Krishna? When will I receive the causeless mercy of Lord Nityananda so that my desires for material enjoyment become insignificant? When will my mind be purified of material anxieties and desires so that I can understand Vrindavana? When shall I be very eager to study the books by the six Goswamis so that I can understand the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna? The lotus feet of the six Goswamis are my only shelter in constant separation from them. I remain Narottama Das Thakur. So Narottama Das Thakur Ki Jai. So we're going to continue with our study of the Jaiva Dharma by Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur. And yesterday we were reading about Mayavadi and personal philosophy and about Shankaracharya's contribution to that and how Shankaracharya was ultimately a devotee. And for those of you who want to know, we were able to iron out all the problems with the computer. It wasn't a computer problem. It was, well, how to put it succinctly, it was a monitor refresh rate problem. If any of you understand what that means. I understand what it means. So I had to, I'm using two monitors and I had to synchronize both of them. And they were not synchronized before because they had different refresh rates. So if you understand that, all glories to you. And if you don't, that's okay too. So let's go to the Jaiva Dharma. We're still in chapter 2 of the Jaiva Dharma by Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur. So Om Ganat Timidanda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur and Meditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my humble obeisances at the lotus feet of my spiritual master's divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So now I will share the screen. And everything seems to be working quite well today. Amazing grace. So, this also proves that nothing happens by chance. This is a computer is an intricate machine, and it certainly could not fix itself by chance. It had to have some intelligent person like me fix it. So, so life comes from computer. So, let's talk about Shankaracharya's philosophy. Shankaracharya, of course, just to reiterate what I mentioned yesterday, Shankaracharya is Lord Shiva. He came to teach impersonal philosophy, Brahmavadi philosophy, because India was taken over by the Buddhists who taught Vaidist philosophy. So therefore, Shankaracharya wanted to bring people back to the Vedas, at least halfway back to the understanding the Vedas are teaching us. And it was up to the other acharyas who appeared after Shankaracharya, like Nimbarkacharya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramanujacharya, Vishnu Swami, etc., to bring us to the proper understanding. So we're starting with this paragraph here. It seems that the perfection it seems, let me emphasize that word, seems. It seems that the perfection of Advaita and Prema are the same from one point of view. However, Advaita means oneness, realizing everything's one, you're one, we're all one. And Prema means love, or love of Krishna, are the same from one point of view. However, there is a difference between the perfection, siddhi means perfection, of Advaita, if one takes its limited meaning, and Prema. Let us examine the nature of Prema. That Dharma which causes one spiritual object to be attracted naturally to another spiritual object is called Prema. Now, it may be confusing to you that the word object is used here, but try to understand the object, the spiritual object, is a subject, is a person. Material objects are not subjects. They are subjected to. In other words, they are not persons. They're just dull matter. So it's that which causes one conscious entity to be attracted naturally to another spiritually conscious entity. I'm paraphrasing. That's called Prema. Prema cannot manifest unless there are two distinct spiritual objects. In other words, love means there's a lover and a beloved. The Dharma by which all spiritual objects are eternally attracted to the supreme spiritual object, Krishna, is called Krishna Prema. Wow. That's the Dharma. Krishna is eternally separate condition and separate condition of all the jivas with a favorable bhava. Bhava means emotion or mood. For Krishna is an eternally accomplished fact in Prema. Got it? Krishna's eternally... In other words, Krishna and us were eternally different entities. We're not separate in the spiritual plane in terms of separation, although that may be part of the ras, or part of the lila. But we are connected to Krishna. Let me put my phone off. All right. So we are connected to Krishna. How are we connected to Krishna? We are connected to Krishna through our love. And we're actually in contact with Krishna. So the separation in this particular context means that we are separate entities, separate persons. Just like you could say a lover and a beloved are separate persons. They're not the same person. The taster, the object tasted, and the taste are three distinct reals. So Krishna is the object tasted. We, if we're immersed in Krishna Prema, we're the taster, and the taste is the love. Are three distinct real things. Love is real. It's taster, the object tasted. And interestingly enough, sometimes Krishna wants to become the taster and taste the object, which happens to be him. Krishna wants to become both of them. What does that mean? Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is the object tasted. Krishna is the object tasted, and as Lord Chaitanya, he's both the taster and the object tasted. And sometimes, here's another one. Krishna wants to Krishna tastes, not sometimes, but generally, Krishna tastes love for the devotee. So sometimes the devotee is the object tasted, and Krishna is the taster. Oh my God. So you got all these different permutations here. If the taster in prema and the object tasted were one entity, prema could not be accomplished eternally. That's a fact. If the pure state of a spiritual object, that's an entity, devoid of material relationship is called the perfection of Dvaita, then prema and the perfection of Dvaita would be the same. In other words, hypothetically, if the perfection of Advaita was considering two living entities, it would be the same. But it's not, because Advaita means one. The Advaita philosophy means one. However, recent followers of Shankara, not satisfied with the original perfection in Advaita, of course the devotees are one with Krishna in connecting with Krishna, but they're not one in identity, preach that one. So the recent followers of Shankaracharya preach that one reaches perfection by the realization of oneness as described by the Vedas, by cultivating complete oneness of the spiritual object. In other words, we are Krishna, and Krishna is us, and we're all one, and I'm you, and you're me. Ugh. I do not want to be anyone else. I certainly do not want to be Krishna. That would be a disaster. Can you imagine? If I was Krishna? That would be an absolute disaster. I don't want to be Krishna. I don't want to be you, whoever you are. I want to be me. There's actually a song like that in the 1960s. I want to be me. Anyway, in that concept, in the impersonal philosophy concept, prema's eternal nature is destroyed. In other words, it's just obliterated. Thus, the Vaishnavas have said that this concept is extremely contrary to the Vedic conclusions. Yes, Shankara has called the pure state of spiritual object the state of Advaita, but his recent followers, not able to understand his deep intentions, gradually rejected that state. In other words, Shankara sort of like he shielded or hid the hidden meaning behind all the statements, taking it out of context. They label the pure state of pure prema to be Maya and preach Mayavada. In other words, loving to the object, the person who's loving Krishna, just to make it real simple in this case, and Krishna, see a difference between them, is Maya or illusion. There is no difference. But they don't explain how, even though we are one with Krishna, of course according to them, not according to me, we fell into this illusion. Because illusion must be more powerful than the one. The one. And that's a contradiction. Because then the illusion would be God rather than the one being the God. Anyway, a most low philosophy to the world. This is the lowest philosophy. It's actually an offense. The Mayavadis accept only one spiritual entity and nothing else. In other words, there's one spiritual entity. I'm God, you're God, we're all God. Thank God we're not God. They do not accept that the Dharma of Prema is in that spiritual object. They claim that as long as Brahmana is in a state of oneness, it is beyond Maya. In other words, when you realize that you're one, then you're beyond Maya. You can take a little prema there just to come to that state, but prema is at most, it's a preliminary stage, which is Maya anyway. That's their philosophy. When Brahman, that means spirit, accepts a form and becomes jivas, in other words, when spirit accepts a form and becomes a jiva, which is stupid for them to say, because the jiva is always eternally a jiva. Nityo nityanam, chaitana chaitanam. Then Brahman is covered by Maya. In other words, we are Brahman and we're covered by Maya. So therefore, again, that's the illogical point in their philosophy. Then Maya must be stronger than Brahman. Anything that has the ability to cover must be stronger than that which it covers. They consider the eternal spiritual form of the Lord to be illusory. Demons. Wow. Mudha. There, Krishna, in fact, calls them asses. He's a little bit more kind to them than I was. He calls them asses. Of course, another place he does call them demons. Moga Shamoga, Karmana Moga Yana Vijayasnasa. They consider the separate existence of the jiva to be illusory. So this is illusion. I'm in illusion, thinking I'm a separate person. God is an illusion, or thinking he's separate, or thinking I'm separate than God is an illusion. Thinking I'm an illusion is an illusion. Because I'm not an illusion, I'm actually one. So everything's an illusion. Strawberry fields forever. Taking prema, sorry about that expression. If you don't know what that means, that's from a Beatles song in the 1960s or 70s. Taking prema and its transformations to be illusory. Prema, love of Krishna. Transformations are the different bhavas, and like Anubhava, the Sthai Bhava, the Sattvika Bhava, the Santri Bhava, which you described before, the ecstasy, the emotions. They establish the constituents of ras as bhavas, or emotions. They establish Advaita Gyan to be beyond Maya. In other words, the knowledge of oneness is transcendental. That's what they're saying. But the love of God is not transcendental. Their concept of perfection of Advaita and the Prema are not at all one. In other words, the concept that the impersonalist, so-called followers of Shankaracharya have of liberation is that you realize your identity with God and with Brahman. And God is Brahman, you're Brahman, God is Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi, Tatvamasi, and all those other nice things. And Prema means you realize that there is God, there's you, there's all these nice little devotees running around, there's the Shaktis, which we mentioned before, the Adi Shakti, Srimati Radharani, who all the Shaktis expand from, and you see the differences. That's why my philosophy is called Nirvishesha. Nirvishesha means without distinction between the different tattvas. Tattvas, again, means like God, us, and the energies, okay? So there's no distinction. Everything is just one. Your money is my money. Your car is my car. Your house is my house. Your prasadam is my prasadam. Your body is my body. You know, that's kind of stupid stuff. Kind of stupid. Chaitanya Deva taught that prema should be tasted, and whatever he taught the world about this through his pastimes is completely beyond Maya. In other words, the only thing beyond Maya or illusion, Maya in this particular case means illusion, not simply energy, is the relationship, eternal relationship of the Jiva soul with Krishna and the Shaktis with Krishna and Krishna himself. That is the pure result of the perfection of Advaita. You know, so real Advaita, the oneness of interest with the Lord, is actually the same, but the Advaita is followed by the followers of Shankaracharya is not. Mahabhava is a special transformation of pure prema. That's in that state that Maha means great emotion. In that state, there's the most intense bliss of prema for Krishna. That's the most intense state. The perceiver and the perceived object are thus different. In other words, Krishna and the devotee, or Krishna and Radharani, Krishna and gopis, or Krishna and Yashoda, they're different persons and they're exchanging mellows with each other, but have a deep relationship in an extraordinary condition. Insignificant Mayavad cannot have any influence on the state of prema. In other words, it's such a stupid philosophy, and it's easy to defeat. It has so many logical inconsistencies and contradictions that it's easy just to throw it out the window. We're all, I am that I am, I, Tatvamasi, you are, that is. It sounds very romantic, or not romantic, poetic. It sounds very poetic to say you are that it is. And you probably will make a lot of disciples if you go around with a big beard and with flowers in your hair like some Mayavadis did in the early days in America. Early days means when I was a kid. So they would say, you are that it is. When you realize that you are it, you are everything. You are one with the oneness. It really sounds interesting, doesn't it? You are one with the oneness who is one with you. Then you will have achieved realization. You say, wow, what an interesting guru. I think I should take initiation from him. With great respect, the sannyasi said, so this is sannyasi talking to the Babaji, Prabhu, I have realized in my heart that Mayavad is the most worthless. By your mercy, all my doubts about this have been completely dissipated. I desire to give up my dress, indicating my state as a Mayavadi sannyasi. So remember, this particular individual was a Mayavadi sannyasi. And he was meditating in Varanasi when a devotee came around and chanted near him, and he just fell into ecstasy. And he ran pretty quickly after that to Sridham Mayapur and associated with Premadas Babaji, who was mentioned here. And he took up Krishna consciousness, even though he was a self-realized Mayavadi. So now he wants to change. The whole time he's been maintaining his saffron cloth like me. So let me give a little historical basis for this. In those days, the only one who wore saffron cloth, well, not only one, but at least in this part of India, where the only people who wore saffron cloth were Mayavadi sannyasis. The Vaishnavas, at least the Bengali Vaishnavas, they would wear like a gamcha or a lungi, a long gamcha, white, and have a little wrap on top. And they would shave off their sika and give away their Brahmin thread and everything like that. So by his dress, the sannyasi was understood to be a Mayavadi sannyasi. And of course, there were Vaishnava sannyasis. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he took sannyas, he took Vaishnava sannyas and did not have a saffron dress. Although sometimes devotees picture him like that. But he did not have saffron dress. Did not. Of course, we worship Lord Chaitanya on the altar as a householder. Therefore, he's dressed in yellow, because that was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's color, and Lord Nityananda in blue. So, basically, he wanted to change his dress. But the Babaji is saying, that's just external. This is what he's going to tell to Mayavadis. To the previous Mayavadi sannyasi, who's now a devotee. And anyway, Babaji said, "O great soul, I do not teach hatred or attraction to any form of dress. When the Dharma in the heart is purified, the dress is naturally purified. When one gives special respect to external dress, one does not pay attention to the internal Dharma." This is actually really important too. When we present Krishna consciousness, and even in our own lives, we should not simply stress the external dress, the dhoti that we have, or the sikh, or whatever. So, at first should come the consciousness. I mean, if you dress like a devotee and you have the consciousness of a Rakshasa, you are a Kali Chela. I think that first one should purify himself and develop an attraction for the external conduct as a devotee. Then the external dress will be faultless. So in other words, there'll be time, don't do it now. He wasn't anxious to just like dress this sannyasi up as a Vaishnava. Even though at that point the sannyasi was a Vaishnava, but he wanted the sannyasi to become completely convinced, which he says here. Become completely obedient to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in your heart. Wow. Then, and only then, should you act according to whatever external factors attract you. Always remember the statement of Mahaprabhu. Very interesting statement from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Markata vairagya nakara loka dekaya yatha yogya vishaya bunjay anasaktahana antaranishta kara bhaye loka vyavahara achirate krishna tamara karibena hudara. Do not falsely practice renunciation just to show to the world. Enjoy material objects as necessary without being attached, being internally steady. Maintain your normal behavior in society. Very soon, Krishna will deliver you. Really important instruction the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave. So therefore, when it's time, Krishna will indicate that it's time. But changing the dress does not have any importance to it. Although sometimes devotees have placed a lot of importance. You got to dress like this. Well, and they even use the word Vaishnava dress. What is Vaishnava dress nowadays? I mean, in a particular culture like Bengal, there is or was Vaishnava dress. But in America, what is Vaishnava dress? Vaishnava dress is the dress or the outfit that you wear when you're serving Krishna, whether it's pants or pantalones or a skirt. Not that, of course, I should not wear a skirt, but whether it's pants but it should be something respectable. In other words, when you go into the temple, you don't want to be wearing your shorts. That's not respectable. Or torn clothing or dirty clothing. Vaishnava dress means respectable, clean clothes that are not too alluring. Understanding the purport of this talk, the sannyasi did not raise the subject of changing his dress. Again, folding his hands, he said, Prabhu, when I became your disciple and took shelter at your feet, I accepted on my head without argument whatever instruction you would give. Hearing your instructions, I understand that pure Krishna Prema is the only Vaishnava Dharma. That is the eternal Dharma of the Jiva. That Dharma is complete, pure, and natural. How should I view the various Dharmas that are practiced in various places? Another interesting question. The practice of different Dharmas in different places. How should I deal with it? Should I just go around and criticize them and say, hey, you're in Maya, buddy? So this is an interesting response that Babaji gives. Babaji said, great soul, Dharma is one. There are not two Dharmas or many Dharmas. There's one Dharma for all Jivas. That Dharma is called Vaishnava Dharma. There cannot be separate Dharmas based on the difference in language, place, or race. So in other words, we don't think that the only Vaishnava Dharma is, in Sanskrit or Dhotis or in a particular language or you're just from India or a particular race. Prabhupada said, in one sense, those who were following Christianity purely are Vaishnavas. Many call the Dharma the Jiva by various names, but this does not produce different Dharmas. They may say love of God instead of prema. The pure spiritual prema of the jivas for the Supreme Lord is the Dharma of all jivas. Jivas have various natures. So it's expressed differently according to different cultures, but the goal is the same. The methodology, the ultimate methodology, which in Kali Yuga is what? Harinam, Harinama, 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 Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva. We got the Ranyata chanting the holy name. Thus, this Dharma is seen to be distorted into various material forms. Sometimes it's in a distorted way. The Vaishnava Dharma refers to the pure state of the Jiva's Dharma. A Dharma can be said to be pure to the extent it contains Vaishnava Dharma. In other words, even though we may see some other group in a different country or a different religion or whatever expressing themselves in a different way, we have to see in essence how much it is consistent with the tattva and the siddhantas that are taught by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Some time ago, I asked the question to Sanatana Goswami, an associate of the Lord, and he's going to elaborate on this in Braja. So this Babaji actually spoke to Sanatana Goswami. I asked if Ishku, which I'm having trouble pronouncing, Ishku, anyway, in Islam was pure prema. He is learned in all scriptures, has no limits to his knowledge of Arabic. Rupa, Jiva, and others arrived at that gathering. Sanatana Goswami mercifully spoke. It's a very interesting interreligious dialogue. Yes, Ishq is prema. The worshippers in Islam use the word to indicate the worship of the Lord, but the word generally indicates material love. So just like you have love of God, or love of matter, or love of your dog. So love can be used in different ways. Okay. Seeing descriptions of the story of Lala Majnun and the love described by Hafiz, it seems that the teachers of Islam cannot realize the pure spiritual object. They have written that love pertaining to the gross body and subtle body is called Ishq. They do not recognize pure prema for Krishna with a distinction of the pure spiritual object. I have not seen pure prema described in their scriptures. I see it mentioned only in the Vaishnava scriptures. Their idea of Ru, that's just like a soul, is also not the pure jiva. Rather, it refers to the bound jiva. I do not see instructions on pure Krishna prema in any other dharma. Pretty exclusive. Krishna prema is commonly mentioned in the Vaishnava Dharma. Krishna prema is described in its pure form in Bhagavatam with the words Prajitakaitava Dharma. That means rejecting cheating dharmas. I believe that previous to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, no one taught pure Krishna prema. If you have faith in my words, then accept this conclusion. So I don't think he was taking into account Jesus Christ. Well, he wasn't teaching. Even Jesus Christ actually said, now some people differ with their interpretation of the statement. I have much to tell you, but you can't bear to hear. So he didn't really, he mentioned pure prema. You have to love the Lord, the God, with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and all thy might. But to teach the whole process of doing it in an explicit fashion as Lord Chaitanya and his followers hadn't been done. Hearing this teaching, I offered my repeated respects to Sanatana Goswami. At this time, the sannyasi offered his respects. Paramahamsa Babaji spoke, O best of the devotees. I will answer your second question. Please listen with attention. The phrases creation of the jiva and formation of jivas are used in relationship to matter. Material words take shelter of material concepts. In other words, he asks questions, when does the jiva get created? The jiva is never created. And, you're just thinking in terms of material concepts. Just like sometimes you talk about, previously Radha and Krishna one, then they became two. But you're thinking in terms of matter. It's not that, some inestimable time in the past they decided to become Krishna decided to become two. But anyway, past, future, and present are the three states of time in the material realm. Time in the spiritual world is always in the present. Try to understand that. Time in the spiritual world is always in the present. In the spiritual world, there are no divisions of past and future. Reminds me of that book by the Mayavadi, Be Here Now. In other words, they're always right there. What is that called? Mindfulness. Yes. In the spiritual world, they've actually perfected mindfulness. Because there is no past or future. They're always just the present. That's interesting. The Jiva and Krishna exist in that type of time. Of course, even though there's no past or future, it's not that people just like freeze like a mannequin in a storefront. It's frozen in one position. There's activity and movement. So what that means, you will have to experience. It's something beyond our realm of experiencing jurisdiction at present time. Therefore, the Jiva is eternal, and the Jiva's Dharma of Krishna Prema is eternal. After being bound in the material world, the Jiva's creation, formation, and fall, qualities of material time, are attributed to all Jivas. So in other words, when the Jiva becomes conditioned, then it's subject to, that's what's called the creation of the conditioned Jiva. Although the Jiva is small, it is conscious and eternal. Its formation takes place previous to coming to the material world, but there's no past or future in the time of the spiritual world. Whatever exists in that time is eternal. Jiva and its Dharma are eternal. Now that's pretty hard to wrap your mind around. The Jiva, its formation takes place previous to come in the material world, because it would have to take place. Everything takes place previous to come into the material world, because material world you got time, and everything's previous. The spiritual world is previous. Everything's previous in the material world, because there's no past, present, and future. This is really logical. Let's understand. No present, past, present, future in the spiritual world where the time is eternal. I have said this, but to the extent that you receive the bhava of the spiritual world, and to that extent you will realize the meaning of this explanation. It's actually by Prabhupada's mercy I actually understand it. I have given only a sketch. You will realize the meaning by spiritual samadhi. Samadhi, absorption. You will not understand this by material logic and argumentation. It's impossible to understand by material logic. In other words, you have a place. How can we understand what it means to be without past, present, all eternal present? What does it mean? And to still have action going on. You can't understand that. When you loosen the power of realization from the bondage of matter, then you will realize the spiritual world beyond matter. In other words, you have to loosen the power of attraction. The power of attraction. Anyway, it's all these phrases. First, realizing your pure Swarupa and chanting Krishna's name purely in your Swarupa. This is really interesting. Swarupa means your own form. That means who you are in the spiritual world. And chanting Krishna's name purely in your Swarupa, like identifying as your spiritual body and chanting purely, not just like struggling to hear, and screaming out some hour, let me hear your holy name, you will manifest the Dharma of the Jiva strongly. Spiritual realization will not become pure by Astanga Yoga. Astanga Yoga means the eightfold yoga process, like Yam and Niyam. Yam means restrictions, Niyam means positive injunctions, going into a secluded place, like Krishna talks about in the Gita. And then asana, sitting in a certain way, pranayam, breathing in a certain way, withdrawing the senses, focusing the mind, meditating, and ultimately samadhi. And one doesn't become pure that way. You have to have. Why? Because Krishna has to be the one to purify you, and the only way you're going to get Krishna to purify you is you chant His holy names, because you manifest His presence when you chant His holy names. You cannot become pure by any mechanical process or any process other than invoking the presence of Krishna and having Krishna purify you. Or Brahmayan. Brahmayan means knowledge of spirit, basically. Theoretical knowledge doesn't give you any spiritual realization. I am this body, or I'm not the body. That's spiritual knowledge. You can awaken the eternal Dharma directly by cultivating Krishna, chanting his holy names. Here's what he says: constantly chant the holy name with enthusiasm. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. The holy name is the only spiritual cultivation. Wow. The holy name is the only spiritual cultivation. We don't take it seriously enough. We're always just trying to finish our rounds, or you have other things to do and we slip the rounds in, or we may be driving our car. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. But it's is the only spiritual cultivation. Cultivation. Just like if you're cultivating a field, flowers or vegetables or something like that, if you do it unconsciously, you'll just trample all the little creepers. And also you have to be aware of weeds when Lord Chaitanya gives this example. Then, of course, he talks about the spiritual cultivation being the cultivation of the bhakti lata bij, the creeper of the seed of devotion. Chanting for some days, you will develop a great attraction for the name. Why haven't we developed a great attraction for the name? We've been chanting for so long. Because our heart is still steel-framed, and we are chanting with offenses. That's why. If any of the devotees, if any other aspects of the holy and the holy dham, if any of the deities, if any prasadam, not properly respecting prasadam, along with that attraction, you will develop an experience of the spiritual world. When will that day come? Among the angas of bhakti, anga means the limbs, or the parts of bhakti. So, like, what are the, there's nava angas, basically, there's 9, hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. Among the angas of bhakti, chanting the name is the chief means and gives the quickest results. Phew! Shravanam, Kirtanam. Of course, in order to chant, you have to hear first, Shravanam. And we hear from a pure devotee, and then we get imbued with the potency to chant nicely. This is the teaching of Mahaprabhu and Krishna Das's work. Bhajanera Majrishreshta Navavida Bhakti Krishna Prema Krishna Dite Dare Mahashakti Taramadje Sarvashreshta Nama Sankirtan Niraparade Namakaila Paila Premadan. In worship, the best are the 9 types of bhakti. We mentioned that before. They have great power to give Krishna Prema, and Krishna, among the 9 processes, Nama Sankirtan is the best. Uttering the name without offense, you will receive the wealth of prema. Let me think. That's the end of the chapter, I believe. Yes, so let me just finish this chapter. CC, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Anjalita 470, dot 70 to 71. Great soul, if you ask who is a Vaishnava, I will answer that he is a Vaishnava who chants Krishna's name without offense. This Vaishnava is of 3 types: Kanishta, materialistic, Majjhima, middle, and Uttama. The person who occasionally chants is a Kanishta. He just sees Krishna in the deity. The person who constantly chants is a Majjhima Vaishnava, who sees Krishna in everyone's heart. The person whom, upon seeing, makes one chant Krishna's name is the Uttama Vaishnava. That's Prabhupada for sure. According to Mahaprabhu's teachings, there's no other symptom by which one can discern the Vaishnava. Wow! According to Mahaprabhu's teaching, there's no other symptom by which one can discern the Vaishnava. So that's a symptom. The first one Kanishta chants occasionally, Majjhima chants constantly, and an Uttama You just like start chanting by seeing him. The sannyasi, absorbed in the sweet teachings of the Babaji, began dancing while chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And that day a taste for the name appeared, and falling at the feet of his guru, he said, Prabhu, Prabhu, please be merciful to this miserable soul. And tomorrow, this is pretty ecstatic. I don't know about anyone here, but I really like this. So, tomorrow we'll do chapter 3, and we finish with chapter 2 today. And so, we will allow you to unmute yourselves or ask a question. I'm sure someone must have a question about these things. Somehow or the computer is working well because we fixed the problem. Simple problem. It was simply the synchronization of the two monitors that I'm using. Oh, here's one from Gopal Das. If Mayavad philosophy is easy to defeat, why does Lord Chaitanya the Gaudiya Sampradaya warn us so urgently to avoid hearing Sarirakya Bhasha? Because we are not intelligent. We will get bewildered. And we don't know the arguments against, I mean, I certainly do, but we don't know the arguments against it. And also because Mayavadi philosophy, another point is, Mayavadi philosophy is offense. So by hearing offenses, even if you know it's an offense, like if you hear an offense against the Vaishnava, even if you know it's an offense, you will actually succumb to being covered up. So even if you know, just like it was, I mean, if someone starts throwing stool at you, even though you know it's dirty, you're going to become covered by it. Isn't it? You know, I know it's dirty, but that doesn't save you from becoming covered by a stool. So that's two explanations. Okay, let abide Chaitanya. He has a question. He has his hands raised. Hand, not hands. You can unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, Hare Krishna Gurudev, Hare Krishna Gurudev. Please
I,
accept my respectful obeisances.
my blessings. So,
Gurudev, what a beautiful, thank you so much for sharing this. This is nectar every morning. And as you say, it's deep philosophy, but it's so ecstatic. And just it's so heartening to hear, Sanatana Goswami and people of, Vaishnavas of that era are talking about inter-religion, topics. So really, it's very nice actually to see that. So we're not sectarian in our thinking. Good. If the chanting, I had two questions actually. One was around the chanting and how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that is the most important, if you like, thing, in terms of developing Krishna prema. So some of these other religions we see, they like Christianity, for example, that talk about holy name, hallowed be thy name, and so on.
right.
But I'm not sure how much emphasis, for example, is put on chanting the names. I think I sometimes see, people chanting on rosary beads and all that, but I'm not sure if it's holy name or what. So what happens? How do they develop love of God in some form, or what happens? What happens to them in their future lives, for example?
That's a good question. That question has been asked of me today several times. But
Oh,
um,
sorry.
what happens is according to their sincerity of purpose, Krishna in the heart will give them, in relationship, ye tamam prupajante tam sata bhajamiham. Krishna will give them intelligence as to what they should do. And there are people in other religions who are chanting purely. I mean, maybe it's not a vast majority, but there's a lot of, it's not a vast majority in the Hare Krishna movement either. You have a lot of people who are chanting just, enjoying life, eating prasadam and everything, but they're not chanting purely. So
Mm.
it's rare. I mean, it's actually rare in any religion. So for us to think that we're better than everyone else, just because Prabhupada has given us, everything, and Lord Chaitanya's given us everything, doesn't make us better. It just makes us actually probably worse because we're not taking advantage. We're giving much more given much more, and we're not actually utilizing it.
Yeah.
So we can't think we're better. I mean, anyway, so Krishna sees in everyone's heart their sincerity, and Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yanamam
You know.
Mupayam. Krishna reveals himself according to that sincerity. Krishna says, Yetam, typical verse, Yetam Prapajante Tam Satavi Bachamiham. I reciprocate with everybody. So
Yeah.
that was the first question. What's the second
Very,
question?
very good.
The
Good.
second
The
question.
next question, yeah, the next question was about it's fascinating about the time concept in the spiritual world, that everything is in present. So
Yeah.
so does that mean? I mean, by um, if you sort of extend that, then how in the Bhagavad Gita Krishna says that I'm the knower of everything, past, present, and future. So that probably then relates to the material world. Does that mean in the spiritual world, even Krishna himself doesn't know what's going to happen in the future?
Krishna,
Because
Krishna, no.
because it's no
That's an
future.
interesting. Krishna,
Yeah.
Krishna knows, but he chooses not to know because he has to. He wants to enjoy. Krishna Loka, Krishna's original aspect in Krishna Loka, knows, but he chooses not to know so he can enjoy. Because
Right.
if
Okay.
you know there's no enjoyment if you know what's going to happen. Enjoyment comes because of surprise, shock. Otherwise, it's very boring. Like if you've seen the same film twice, it
Yeah.
gets a little boring. I mean, sometimes sometimes I'm in the airplane and there's this film that I used to like or whatever, and I'm not going to watch it. It's just boring. I know. I've seen it, been there, and it's not Krishna conscious. So,
So he
so
chooses
Krishna
not
doesn't
to.
want to
He
get bored.
chooses. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, Gurudev. Thank you so
Well,
much for that. Hare Krishna.
we have some more in the chat window here. Hare Krishna Guru. Please accept my obeisances. Was Krishna Prema not available in other yugas? How? Yes, it was available in other yugas, and there was other dharmas that were primary dharmas like meditation and deity worship to achieve Krishna Prema. So in the Kali Yuga, it's Krishna Nam Sankirtan. So here's another one. I would like to download a copy. Can you please post the link? No, because this is you'll have to go to Manu Maharaj's books and buy a copy. Or you can go to the Veda base, and the Jaiva Dharma is on the Veda base, but not as good a translation, but it's basically all right on the Veda base, the Bhaktivedanta Veda base. So that's what's there. Gopal Das says, what about anticipation, the excitement of anticipation? Yeah, there's anticipation, but things may not happen the way you were anticipating. I anticipate a lot of things, and I get very excited. Oh my goodness, this is going to happen. That's going to happen, and it doesn't happen, or it happens in the opposite way. That's not knowing the future. Anticipation doesn't mean knowing the future. It just means you think you know what's going to happen, but actually usually doesn't happen that way. Even with Krishna, because Krishna likes that to be that way. No, it doesn't always happen. I answer that. Because if it always happened the way Krishna anticipates, it would be boring for Krishna. Krishna likes surprises too. He likes shocks. I mean, just like when the coward boys marched into the mouth of the Aghasura demon, Krishna was like, oh my God, didn't expect this to happen. What am I going to do? Okay, one more question from Chitra Leka. Okay, what's the question? I mean,
Hare Krishna, Gurudeva.
you can.
That's my humble
Good to see
awareness.
you.
Good to see you too. Gurudeva, the Mayavadi was told to first be obedient to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the heart, and then embrace all the external things. My question is, I see, especially in young people, I see that many people are attracted to using saris or even the tilak or the kanti, and they begin asking us, or they begin using them. Is it offensive? Or when they begin coming to the programs, they begin using saris, even if they're not chanting the rounds or anything, but they're interested. shouldn't we
Right.
should we be more careful with that, like not allowing them to use tilak, kanti, or those things, like, or that does that purify them to to continue in the process?
That's an interesting question. I wish I had that problem in America. Obviously, you're not preaching in America. Trying trying to get people into dhoti, even if they're initiated for 200 years, um, it's kind of hard. Get people to wear tilak.
The
It's even
like,
obviously you have the opposite problem that I have in America. That's actually funny. Uh, no, it's different because it'll get them eventually to chant. The way in cultures like the Western culture in general, when people start to dress a certain way, it affects the mind. Like Prabhupada said, you dress as a soldier and start to think like a soldier after a while. Just like if you put a gun in someone's hand, they start to get a little violent. They start to shoot. So that happens in America. So because of our culture, it's actually helpful to people to begin to identify with the devotees, some of the external things. Yes, one devotee put it next that our temple attire becomes like ragamuffins. Ragamuffins means like, uh, basically, it's not like a muffin that you eat. It's like, it's like one of these little dolls that's dressed in rags, right? Sort of ragamuffin, or like a bum in the street. Yeah, I wish we had that problem. I mean, send some of the people here. We could use some of the people dressed in dhotis. A morning program. Some morning programs. I'm the only one dressed in a dhoti. So I think here in America, people people are reluctant to dress a little bit differently. One of the reasons for that is because we're more of a monolithic culture, and we like everybody to sort of fit into the same mold. It's not, uh, we're America. The people just don't appreciate as much different cultures as they do some other countries like Colombia or Mexico. So it's just like, and it's just like anyway, you get made fun of wearing a dope. I remember not anymore because now I'm such an old man. They put up with anything I do. But when I was when I was young, I got a lot of people telling me that, why are you wearing a dress? Now, of course, I look like a religious person. When I was young, when I was like 20 years old, I looked like a little kid wearing a dress. Now people could relate. I think we have to end now because it's time. But actually, pray that I can have the same problem that you have there. All right, it's a good problem to have because that
Thank
way
you.
they will start. They will start chatting.
Okay.
All right, see you.